Hi and welcome back. In order to continue developing Python applications and starting to make more and more complex applications, we're going to need something more than just the Python shell, the IDLE sort of built-in interpreter. We're going to need something a bit more professional and something that will let us organize our projects and develop our applications easier and smartly. So the tool for the job is very popular right now in the industry and is made by this company called JetBrains. In order to download this product, simply go to www.jetbrains.com and then you'll be at this page or a similar page. Simply click on Products and find PyCharm. And then clicking on Get PyCharm Now or on the download button. And here we can download the Community Edition. This is plenty powerful for what we want to do. Although, of course, if you want to pay for the Professional Edition, or indeed if your company supplies this for you, you may be able to use Professional Edition instead. The Community Edition is good enough for what we're doing and is indeed a great development environment as well. So simply download it and install it like any other application, and then we'll be ready to move on and start developing more advanced Python applications. I'll see you in the next video. Hi and welcome back. So in this video we're just going to take a look at PyCharm and how we can create a new project. Simply go to the Create New Project button and this will bring you over to this window where you can pick the type of project that you want. Now in the PyCharm Community Edition we can only pick pure Python. If you have the Professional Edition, then you can pick a lot of different presets that will make your life slightly easier, but it's not really a big deal. And then you have to pick the location of your project and also the interpreter. Now, this interpreter is quite an interesting thing about Python. Other languages, some may have something like this, but many others will not. And the main difference between all of these is that some of them have this V at the bottom of the logo of the icon and the others do not. The difference is that these four are what's called a virtual environment and the others are not, and then some of these are also virtual environments. So what is a virtual environment? And a virtual environment essentially is a clean Python installation. You can think of it that way. That's pretty much what it is. When you install Python, it's a clean Python install. And then you can install on top of that a bunch of libraries and add-ons for Python so that you can do a number of different things. For example, be able to parse dates and times. That would be a library that you can install on your Python install, and then all the programs that you create in this system will be able to use that library and use that code. However, if you always use one system, one installation of Python, eventually as you install more and more of these libraries, you'll have hundreds of libraries installed. And then this can clog it up, and it can make it so that sometimes you have really old versions of libraries installed and then you need new versions, which means you have to update them, but then some programs you wrote years ago no longer work with the newer versions and things like that. So it's a bit of a hassle if you have a lot of libraries installed and a lot of projects depending on the same Python installation. So the solution to that is virtual environments. A virtual environment is essentially an installation that comes from another Python install. So for example, these four virtual environments are all Python 3.4, but they're all used in different projects, and therefore one of them can have some libraries installed while the other one does not. And that helps separate the libraries that are needed for one project that are not needed for other projects. That's really all it is. And if we are to create our first application here, simply click on the small cog and then create virtual env. And then we can decide where we want to put it. In my case, I'm going to go to my documents and then click on programming here. And then I'm going to click on full stack for the course. I'm going to choose that. And then it says that it already exists, so we'll put it in VM. So I'm going to create a virtual environment called VM that is in this directory here. And then you have to pick the interpreter that this comes from. So in this course we're using Python 3.4, so picking that would make sense. If you're using older versions of Python, then you can pick those. And then you do not want to check this necessarily. Okay, it doesn't really matter what you call your virtual environment. Normally it's called env or vm. That's the default name. And then press OK, and then that will create it for you. It only takes a couple of seconds. And when that's created, you've essentially installed Python again, but only for use in that folder. And then your project that we're about to create will be able to use that specific Python installation, that virtual environment, which means that it won't share any library installations with other Python installs and other virtual environments. Okay, so then go back to my document, programming, full stack, and then choose here, create that, and that is my project now. So my project is in my documents, programming folder, full stack, and then a folder called src for source code of my project. And now we can start doing the Python programming that is essentially going to let us develop these more complex applications through PyCharm, now with a full-blown integrated development environment and IDE. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next video. So I'll see you there. Alright, welcome back. And in this project we're simply going to get acquainted with PyCharm, our IDE, in creating the Age app that we created in the last section really quickly. The first thing to do is create a new Python file that will hold our code. So simply right click on your source folder, go to new Python file. And I'm simply going to call it app. You can call it whatever you want really. And notice how PyCharm already appends the author at the top, and that's great. Okay, so our app got some input from the user. Notice how PyCharm also tells you what you should be writing inside the brackets. In this case it's a prompt variable. That is what you are giving the input function. So you're giving the input function a prompt, which is what you're going to ask the user. Enter your age, and we have to put this into a variable. And then we are going to calculate the seconds, rather age seconds. It's going to be int user age times 365 times 24 times 60 times 60. And now we're going to print out to the user what their age in seconds is. So print your age in seconds is format age seconds. Notice that with autocomplete things suddenly become a lot easier and a lot faster. Okay, so now we can right click on app.py and go to run, and here at the bottom we get a command prompt which asks us for our age and then gives us back the answer. Fantastic. Of course, we could put this in a method, so def age program, for example, and then simply tab those in, and notice how that get colored in as orange. And then at the bottom, all we have to do is call the age program, and then when we run this, we'll get the exact same thing happen. Essentially, this is not running initially until we call this line there, until we execute that line there. Do notice, however, that if we put this at the top, then it's an error because it has not been defined yet when we are up here. So it has to come after, or else it doesn't know where to look. Okay, so this is how we would create the age program here in PyCharm, And now it's becoming substantially easier to run the program. We simply have to press play at the top right of the screen, or command right click and press run, or press run down here at the left. So it's becoming easier, and no doubt in a couple of videos time I'll also show you how to run this without the use of the integrated development environment. But this is how you would do it, and now we're just going to be creating another project for our what price is this chair app that we're going to be creating in this section. So I'll see you in the next video. Hi and welcome back. Just a small aside before we continue. There is something I don't particularly like about most IDEs, and certainly not about PyCharm, and that is the font, and the overall theme is not particularly appealing to me. So in order to change that, just go to the preferences, and then we can go to colors and font here. First thing I'm going to do actually is open up appearance, and then go over to appearance, and here you can change the theme. So you can choose a dark theme where everything is obviously not black but very dark browns and dark colors, and that's a bit easier on the eyes, and I actually quite like the dark theme. For recording it's not very good, so I'm going to stick with the white theme for the videos, but do know that I do use a dark theme at work, so you can opt for that. Try that out if you want. However, no theme is going to make the default font look good, because that default font looks pretty terrible, and certainly it's not very easy to read, and for you guys when you're looking at the videos, that font is way too small for us to do anything with it. So the first thing we want to do is change that font, and certainly I want to change that font. But you cannot modify any of the default schemes, so you need to save the default scheme as, and I'm going to save it as my name, and then you can change the fonts. So this is not very clear when you're doing things here, but you can do that. And I'm going to change to console as, which is a font I very much like, size 15 and line spacing 1.1. Then when you apply that, you can see that that's slightly more readable now. And then I'm also going to change a couple more things. So if you go into general and you go into weak warning, you see that's the very slight squiggly line under it that notified us of the PEP 8 issues in the last video, but we couldn't really see it. So I'm going to change the effect of the underwaved into being a darker grey, and that way we might be able to tell a bit more easily. Do notice that when we get a PEP 8 warning, the full line is going to be having a squiggly line under it, so it's going to be a bit easier to tell even though it's grey. Okay, so then go into language defaults, and what I'm going to change here is a function declaration. No, I think that's in the Python one. I'm just looking through. You can change any color of anything you want, so if there's something you don't particularly like, then you can change the color of it. But actually I don't think there's anything I want to change there, but there is something I want to change in the Python one. So the function definition, notice how our functions are black just like any other text, and it's not very easy to see that these are functions. Okay, I'm lying there. It's reasonably easy to see that, but I want it to be easier still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the functions to a bright orange and make them bold so they're a bit better. Like that, and that's slightly easier on the eyes, I think. And I might make it a wee bit darker, just so it's a bit easier on the eyes. Okay, maybe not so dark. Okay, there we go. And then anything else you want to change, you can do. But I think for now, that's gonna be that. I may make the bold self. We haven't come across this just yet, but we will very soon. And I am not going to change the keyword, I don't think. You can go into language defaults and change the keywords, but I think that's fine. I think that keyword is reasonably viewable, so we're going to leave it as that. Okay, so now not much has changed, but the font has changed and it's a lot more readable, at least for me. You can choose a different font if you want. And we've changed the color of the functions, so now it's a bit easier to see what is a function or what is not. And now that I'm doing that as well, I'm going to go back into Python, select the class definition, and we're going to change that into something a bit better, something like a bright pink. It's not very bright, but that'll do. We haven't come across classes yet, but we will, and we want to also be able to differentiate them from other things, and classes are a lot larger than functions, so we want something even easier to differentiate. So that was just a small aside for you guys to change a bit how these things go, the colors and the fonts to make them more personalized for yourselves. And I certainly cannot program with the font that was there before, but with this one it's slightly better. Okay, so don't worry about that too much if you're not too worried about that. If you are worried about that, then do. But I will see you in the next video.